never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this.
The Holy Gospel according to Luke chapter 12, beginning at verse 32.
Praise and glory to God.
Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed ready for service and keep your lamps burning, like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Truly I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the middle of the night or towards daybreak. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. This is the gospel of Christ. Please be seated. Your word is your word, God. Father, by your word, come, be present and speak, we ask. Amen. If you're wondering why we're holding microphones, it's because this morning our lectern mic broke. Our gospel is timely where it says, so be ready, for you do not know when your microphone will break down. Hazel, God bless you. God keep you. God has you. Ian, Mary, thank you for being here with Hazel this morning. I want to share two stories and then I want to talk about the gospel, if I can. I was 13 years old and I had my first girlfriend. None of you will know this, but in my day we used to write letters, handwritten notes, placed in an envelope with a stamp. That would be taken to the post office. Someone there would then deliver it to whoever your recipient was. I'd met this girl at Easter Christian camp and I'd instantly fell in love with her. In fact, I'd not even seen her and I was already in love with her. Her name was Rosie. And I wrote to her every day. I mean, every day. That is until her nana called my mother and asked if her son would stop writing to her granddaughter. It was a death in Dargaville. The family had come to my office Dad had just passed away. Dad would not want a church service, they said to me, with mince pies in their hand. After all, they'd been up all night and not eaten. I remember those pies well. They never got to finish them. Dad does not want to be in a church, nor does he want to be buried. Those are his rules, and they do not want us to break them. That is till my phone rang. Partway through their pies, we get a phone call saying that his wife had just passed away. Okay, the family says that changes matters because Mum wanted to be buried and she wanted a church service. She's the boss. I remember that funeral time distinctly because we needed 2 hearses. We had to carry 2 bodies into the house, and in fact the family chose to lay the 2 caskets side by side on their bed. I'd not seen that before. Be not afraid, flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. I told you the story about my letter writing, in particular the fact that I wrote every day. It wasn't because I was in love, it was because I was really, really insecure. I wanted to ensure that she would have every opportunity to love me, and she would not have an opportunity not to love me. The couple that we had together in their bed and finally in the service held in the church. They did life together. They did everything together. They even did death together. That was a different type of insecurity. That was a security in one another. Sometimes we're really good at being secure when there are others around us. The Gospel this morning, in particular, verse 22, where it says, "Be not afraid, little flock. Your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." There are 3 roles in that verse. Little flock refers to Jesus as the shepherd. Father, to him as our Father, pleased to give you the kingdom, is because Jesus, or God, is King. So the promise is a shepherd, a God who is your Father, and a King. I've thought about this scripture a lot this week. It would be easy for me to say to you that God has promised you the kingdom. Rejoice, be glad, go home and live your life accordingly. The reality is that I have insecurities, and so do you. They're the same insecurities. They look different, but they're the same. They're the things that rob us of an ability for God to show you that He is your shepherd, that He is your Father, that He is your King. I don't think it's wrong to say that this is a hard gospel to take hold of. What I trust it wants us to understand is whatever the insecurity that befalls you this morning, God makes a promise to us. Just like we heard in Hebrews of all the numbers of people who had faith in God. If you look carefully at each of those characters in Hebrews that Beth read, they all had faith in weird situations. Who on earth would build an ark? Who on earth would visit a land that would become your inheritance for generations to follow? This is the same promise that God makes to us. Whatever is your insecurity this morning, whatever is the thing that may separate you from God, unless we are willing to look at those things, unless we are willing to face those things, we're going to be robbed of these promises that are ours in this gospel this morning. I know my insecurities, and I know how they take away from all that God promises for me. What about you? What is your insecurity this morning that may prevent you from knowing all the promise that is ours in this gospel this morning? The promise is mine. The promise is yours. Your God is King. Your God is Shepherd. Your God is Father. He loves us like a father. He leads us like a shepherd. And He has all that we need in His kingdom for us. Insecurities hurt because they hold you back from the promise of God. It's really easy to neglect the fact that that's happening. So let's stop. Let's take a moment. And whatever that insecurity is, say this to God and let's pray. Father, you know the insecurity that gets in the way of me hearing and receiving all that you promise to us. Do work in us this morning to acknowledge, to rest in you, to grant us strength to trust it to you. Help us, Father, to receive you as shepherd today, to receive you as Father today, to receive you as King today. Father, you remind us to be ready. And ready is not, Lord, a physical state, but it's the place where we come and we rest before you, trusting in you, just like all those in Hebrews. You know our insecurities this morning. Lord, be our strength.